Hey everyone, Perri here with a brand new review for you, and this is a special review because I have Jaby Koay here. I'm so excited that you're finally seeing my set.
Yeah, I like it.
I'll never forget when you first invited me over to your place, and I was in awe of your setup, and it's just like you're super experienced in this whole realm that we're in right now. So the fact that like you're here and seeing what this little thing that I've started.
I think you got a great setup here, actually. I think it's awesome.
It means a lot coming from you.
I'm actually kind of jealous because it's so nice and neatly organized.
Except when Dewey jumps up there and then he knocks everything over.
I've actually like you have a lot of stuff and it's like nice. I had a lot of stuff and it wasn't nice, so I took a bunch of it away and just went minimal.
Yeah, we're both on the same page with our neat and organizedness. But part of the reason that Jaby's here to talk about First Man is because whenever I have guests on the channel, it's before they ever come on, I just want to know, like, what are you interested in? What are you passionate about? Because I've done everything on this channel from, movies and TV are the regular thing that I cover, but I've gone as far to cover AFL and learn about Australian football because someone suggested it to me. So I love asking what someone's into, and what you told me was astronomy.
Yeah, I developed an interest in astronomy in my early 20s because I don't know why, I just got fascinated. I was turned away from science and whatnot in Catholic school. I just realized this the other day because my third grade teacher told me, you're not going to get better. And so she stopped letting me take home the science book. And so for a long time, I just was not interested in science.
That's the worst teacher ever.
Yeah, so that was Catholic school. And so what happened was, as a grown-up, I got really intrigued with evolution and science, particularly like space exploration and black holes and wormholes and all that stuff, and the technology that scientists are working on to help us move through space. And so with First Man, I was intrigued because it's like the early impetus to what we are exploring now and the potential mission to Mars and all that stuff.
Okay, so they've got you with that stuff. How about Damien Chazelle as a director? Because everyone out there knows I really like Whiplash, but I was a huge La La Land fan, where that was my favorite movie of that year. So looking forward to his next feature was a big deal for me.
Okay, so if your audience is a huge are huge La La Land fans. So this is where we run into a conflict because Whiplash is currently my all-time favorite movie.
Wow.
Yeah, I saw it not knowing anything about it, and I was just blown away. I'm like, this is the perfect analogy for life. Just like what you encounter as an artist, like where someone's trying to hit you down and you got to keep rising despite, because if you know your talent, if you know your skill and what you're capable of and what your potential is, you have to keep going in the face of someone screaming obscenities at you, basically. That's what it feels. For me, it felt like a great analogy to life. And the thing is, as the movie went on, you could never predict where it was going to go next, and I loved that about it. Every time I thought I knew where it was going, it went this way. Like, just as a short example, when the car crash happened and the car flips, I thought, oh, so that now is where the movie transitions to him in the hospital. And nope, he gets out of the car and runs. And then he starts playing, and I'm like, oh, here's where he, despite getting messed up in the car, does amazing. And it's like, nope, the stick falls and the whole thing goes to shit. And I'm like, now here's where he just walks away with his tail between his legs. It's like, nope, now he leaps over the drum set to tackle J.K. Simmons. And so, yeah. It's J.K. Simmons, right? Okay, yeah. So I loved Whiplash so much, and it's one of my favorite memories with my sister because I watched it with her. And so when I watched La La Land, my expectations were super, super high, and man, I was disappointed. I was like, I like this, I'm enjoying it, but like the ending just made me so upset because I'm like, there's no excuse for this ending.
Really?
Because I mean, think of the age that we live in now with Skype, with iPhones, with just the technology that's available to us, and the fact that this woman is going on to become a star. I'm like, there's no way. There's no way that they couldn't make it work, in my opinion. He could do jazz anywhere. It doesn't have to be LA or whatever. Like, he could literally do his thing. We don't have to have a debate about that. I enjoyed La La Land from the craftsmanship side. I just didn't like the story. And a lot of people had issues with the singing and the dancing. I don't know how to sing or dance, so I didn't care as much. But like, there's all kinds of reasons why La La Land was not my favorite movie that year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Without the technology, I think it had that kind of like almost like a classic charm to it that I really appreciated. But I mean, when you're talking about logic and the way the world works now, what you're complaining about does make sense. But there was just something so pure about the romanticism of the whole thing, and the fact that it ended on a bittersweet note to me.
Yeah.
That's what made it stick with me. It's like if the two of them had just like frolicked off into the sunset together, I probably would have forgotten about it quicker than I did. But instead, thinking about the two of them having to juggle this passion for career and craft, but also each other, and seeing how, you know, maybe not in every single case, but in their case, it couldn't all align. That really kind of got like under my skin, tugged on my heartstrings in all the right ways, and it really stuck.
Well, I mean, it had a lot of the same themes that Whiplash had, which is like you're sacrificing yourself for your craft. You're sacrificing not yourself, but the potential for happiness with a partner for your craft. And like in Whiplash, what's his name? Miles Teller breaks up with his girlfriend because he goes, "You're just gonna get in my way," basically. That's the short of it. Is like, I'm gonna have to tell you I don't have time for you. You're gonna be upset. And you and I were just kind of talking about something like that, and so, it's something similar in La La Land, where it's like this. They're talking. It's about sacrifice and jazz and whatnot. And I'm like, okay, we've been through this. Like, what are you offering me new this time around that I didn't see in Whiplash already?
All right. I think we're gonna have to agree to disagree on that, but I still do love Whiplash too. But obviously, La La Land is my favorite. Whiplash is right behind that for Damien Chazelle movies, and you know, I feel like I just like teed myself up for telling you my Damien Chazelle rankings, which I'm not ready to do whatsoever yet. I do need to see First Man again, but just jumping right into the First Man discussion here.
I had the same kind of anticipation as you. Like, because I love Whiplash and La La Land let me down, I'm like, please, just make this one better. Just make it somewhere near as good as Whiplash, please. And I looked up, fun fact, Armstrong's background, his musical background. He actually played jazz. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. I thought that was gonna be a bigger part of the movie, and when there was a discussion in the film about music, I'm like, there it is.
No, I mean, it is kind of a nice touch, but my initial reaction to First Man, just surface level, is I really liked it. I really liked it a lot, and there's certain elements of it. I don't want to spoil anything, but I will tell you right off the top that I think, you know, very similar to La La Land and the way that movie ended and what I was just talking about with, you know, the difference between something ending in a specific way where, yeah, you might have gotten a satisfying, thorough, well-told story, but not one that necessarily sticks with you. It's the ending of First Man that really kind of was drilled into my head and made me think about everything that they had been through in a little bit of a different way and made me take their journey with me well after the movie was over. And overall, the entire movie I thought was an incredible, it's got like a ride quality to it, a ride quality paired with some of the similar things we were just talking about in terms of a relationship, with a relationship with two people and a career you're so passionate about, and seeing how that passion for that career and that dedication to that career can cause a major strain on the relationship. And I think that in particular was especially strong in First Man.
Okay. My general feeling is I liked it. I appreciated the boldness of it and the fact that he wanted to tell this particular story because of what we established, like my interest in astronomy and space travel and whatnot. Like learning about Neil Armstrong from like the perspective of we are at the cusp of new. We are basically like doing what they used to do on the seas back in the day. Like we are at the very edge of exploration, and I was just the feeling of like, nothing here has been tested. This is like all really brand new and things can go wrong, and they do.
Yeah.
And from that perspective, I really appreciated like the exploration of that because I feel like people take for granted like what we're about to have. Like just 20 years from now, we're gonna have planes that or spaceships, so we can have the ability to just explore luxury class space flights. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And like that's not that far away, and that trickles down to economy status, where we can experience a version of it, right? And people are going to take it for granted. Just like I saw this video a while back. This is going to feel like a digression, but
let's hear it.
There was this black and white video you can find on YouTube of this guy talking about the internet from the 50s. And he goes, this is a computer, and your children's children will be able to use this to order food, to order new parts for their refrigerator, blah, 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 and they will take it for granted how easy they can communicate with their friends through this box. And I can only imagine what people were like at the time. Like, this is pre-Jetsons. Like, looking at that and going, what are you talking? That's insane. That's crazy talk. That will never happen. And now we're doing it from our phones.
Yeah.
You know, that exact technology. And so I think we take it for granted, like, how meaningful all this was and what it provided us. That's why.
For sure.
That's why I'm happy the story was told. But like, I had issues that we can get into. Like, is this a spoiler discussion?
We can, if you want to get into spoilers, we can make a cutoff time and we can switch gears and just give everybody a warning.
Okay,
we'll keep it non-spoiler for a couple more minutes.
I'll keep it non-spoiler.
Touching on something that you were just speaking about, going into this movie, obviously I was familiar with the story, but I was never familiar with the story beyond what you would basically get on a news broadcast, which is essentially a surface level telling of the story where everybody isn't necessarily human beings. They're just these tools in order to have this accomplishment happen so we can all applaud in the comfort of our own homes. So the opportunity to really see behind the scenes, and specifically, like I was saying at the beginning, the family life, that was something else. And also with the whole idea of just being on the cusp of achieving something new with the technology, that was something that I really appreciated, the way that Damien Chazelle captured it. The idea of making sure you are in Ryan Gosling's shoes the entire time, where I've never really seen space travel captured just this way on the big screen, where you are sitting in that cockpit with him. You are seeing the windows freeze over. You are hearing the rattle, and the sound design in this thing is incredible to the point that every single time he goes on a mission or is in some sort of training, or then that extends to the conversations he has with his wife. But you feel the risk he's taking every single step of the way, and that's never really something that I processed in my glorified version of the story. Yeah,
I agree with you in all those points. I just wish that Damien Chazelle used something other than an 85mm lens while shooting this thing. I don't know if it was actually an 85mm lens, but like, I swear to you, like, you watch the film and 10 to 15% of this thing's out of focus. And I'm just like, why? Why is it out of focus? Like, come on, dude. And there was a scene, maybe you remember, where, one of the first major missions in space that Neil Armstrong did, where he had to dock with this thing that was out there. I forget exactly why this had to happen, but they thought it was a success, and the camera was like on one character, and then it zooms to another character who's like, he said something, and I could not record what he said because I was so focused on how he was out of focus. I couldn't see his face, and the camera guy was like trying to find focus for, I swear to you, like 5 to 10 seconds.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, I'm seeing this in IMAX, so mind you, it's even more exacerbated than maybe what you saw.
Interesting, because I saw it at TIFF and not in IMAX.
Yeah, so you watch it in IMAX, and these problems are more glaring, more apparent. And so, like,
these are also the things that once I hear someone say it, then I watch it and I don't get it out of my head. Okay. So I will probably notice it next time if it is there.
In advance. Then.
No. I mean that's the interesting thing about having these discussions and then going into a movie with just a different perspective.
So the other things you got out of it, I wanted to get out of it.
Yeah.
I like without going into any spoilers, like the film starts you off with introducing certain family members, and I'm like, I want to appreciate this, but the way it's shot, it's like, it's so not Paul, but is it Paul Greengrass? Is that his name? Greengrass, who directed the two Bourne movies.
Yeah,
like it was just like so shaky, and I'm like, it's shot on this really long lens, so focus is always like getting lost, and I'm like, I don't know why it's so shaky. I don't know why it's like these. I don't know why it's these like tight choker shots the whole. I felt suffocated while watching it, and I'm like, I understand the need to do that in certain scenes like space travel and whatnot, but like, because like you're trying to convey as Damien Chazelle like the confinement of this space. I appreciate that, but I don't want the same confinement when he's just hanging with his baby.
Really? Because I think it's a similar thing where it's like a different kind of suffocation where he's out there in space and you're basically trapped, and it's that claustrophobic feeling in whatever he's flying. But it's even just the pressure that he has on him with a family too. It's like there's so much pressure with this epic mission that's a major thing for NASA. It's a life-threatening mission, but still when he goes home, it's just as much pressure, but a completely different kind of pressure, knowing that he's got to come home to his family, pay attention to them, make sure he's giving them the love and attention they deserve, but while his mind is kind of elsewhere, and while he he needs to take these risks. He needs to put his life on the line, even though he has this family that's dependent on him and counts on him.
Yeah, it felt like I was watching Mother a little bit.
Oh boy.
The way it was shot. It was just like it felt like he was using the same lens the whole movie. I liked Mother, just to put that out there. Like, I enjoyed the shit out of that movie. Excuse me, am I allowed to cuss on this?
Yeah, you can curse.
Okay, so I don't know. I enjoyed the heck out of Mother. Like, I really appreciate it. That's a whole different discussion. But like,
I'm curious to hear more about that.
It just felt like it was shot the same way, where Damien Chazelle really wanted to use just like the same lens the whole movie, and I'm trying to figure out why. And I appreciated like the film grain look of it to make it look like something that was from the 60s. But if you look at that footage, it's not that shaky. That's the thing about shaky cam that filmmakers seem to not understand, is that people are trying to hold it still, not shake it deliberately. You feel what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
And so that's my issue with like the Bourne Identity movies, is like, you're trying to keep it still, and that's where the shake is coming from, not this deliberate, like, crazy, chaotic thing.
So wait, so your main criticism of the movie is from a technical perspective?
The way it's shot made it very unenjoyable in certain areas.
No, that's interesting.
And
I wonder if I'm kind of I guess just used to, or I take to that kind of filmmaking format very easily, where it feels natural to me, because I do have that a lot with a whole bunch of, shaky cam found footage type movies, where I know a lot of people have problems with that format and the way that it's utilized, but for some reason it feels like second nature to look at that to me.
Okay.
Like I never have any kind of adjustment period where I need to get used to that format before I can get into a movie.
Like those close-ups of Ryan Gosling, and it's like so violent. I'm like, I get it. I get what you're trying to do. You're trying to put us in the cockpit with him and make us feel what he feels. But if you reduce that shake by 75%, it would have still felt the same.
Okay.
And I would have been able to not feel as annoyed.
All right.
Like I feel like you can accomplish all the same beats, the same feelings, if not even more effectively, and by reducing all that. With reducing all that, I mean. That's my feeling.
No, it's interesting to hear that when I had like a complete opposite reaction to all that, where it completely sucked me in, and it put me in his shoes in particular. But I think the performance that I found the most striking in the entire movie was Claire Foy as his wife. I was just completely taken by her predicament, and in particular, and I think this is the reason why we're talking about her as being a potential, if not likely, supporting Academy Award nominee here, is because she's got a couple scenes in the movie that to me it was almost like the emotional focal point of the movie to me, where one scene in particular, and maybe I'll talk about it more in the spoiler section of this, but she has this one moment where it basically puts into perspective so much about what he's risking that has absolutely nothing to do with the mission itself. Okay. It's strictly what he could be risking in their home by going away. Yeah. And that added so much more weight to the movie to me, and so much more weight to the real story that I was never aware of before, that I look at that performance and I say, Claire Foy's work in that scene was a game changer for this movie. She needs a nomination.
I would love for us to go into spoilers so you can elucidate a little bit more.
You want to?
Yeah, because I'm actually happy that you enjoyed that aspect of it, like the female characters, I should say, because when I watched it, I didn't have any appreciation for the female characters, and maybe something's wrong with me, but like I'm all about championing more female roles and stronger female characters and all that stuff, and seeing more stories around them. But for some reason, when I was watching this, I just didn't have any love or passion for anything dealing with the female characters.
Okay, and I want to hear more about this.
I'm not exactly sure why, but like, yeah. So if we can go into the
all right,
spoilers,
well,
I'd love to hear your take on it.
First, we need to let everybody know our scores for First Man.
Okay.
So we rate things out of Deweys here. So it's the Dewey Decimal Movie Scale. It is out of 5, and First Man is getting 4.5 out of 5 Deweys for me. So how many Deweys do you give First Man?
I would give it 3.5.
Okay.
Yeah, I would give it 3.5 because there's a lot I like about it, but some of the things that I don't like really held me back from, giving it.
I understand that.
So
yeah, it's it's interesting talking about a movie when you fall on different sides of a divide. Also because you in particular, you kind of explain it and you justify it, and I get it. Yeah. I get it. I don't feel the same thing myself, but I get it and I respect it.
Cool.
All right. Spoiler time now.
All right, so go into like that thing you were just talking about.
My favorite scene in the entire movie is the scene just before he goes on the mission and he's having the conversation with Claire Foy, and she basically tells him he wants to just get out of there without talking to his kids and essentially saying goodbye.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, you go in there. I will not let you do this. You have to do it. And I just love the fact that after everything they've been through, and you know, it's so easy for a role like that in a movie, regardless of the true story, to be a supportive wife. He's taking the risk to have this great accomplishment for mankind. But no, she lays down the law. She makes him know that even though this thing you're doing is super important, you are obligated to us as a family and you owe it to your children. God forbid anything happens, to say this to them now, because it could be the only chance you have.
What film have you seen that's like this, where the woman doesn't do that exact thing? I'm very curious. Because I feel like that's always the scene I see.
Really?
Is that the woman comes in and is like, you got us, we're here, and you know, you're sacrificing us, and this other thing is more important to you. I feel like that's always in a movie with a guy who's trying to do this epic thing that's bigger than life. You know?
I'm sure there are examples of that. I think why it's so powerful in the context of this movie and also this true story is the fact that so many people out there didn't really know what happened behind the scenes. So the fact that I got to feel that from the family perspective completely changes the way that I look at that whole accomplishment now. But, you know, also a lot of times, I can't think of a specific example off the top of my head, but a lot of times when I think about, you know, someone going off, I don't know, to war in a movie, out into space or something, it's normally a heartbreaking moment of, I will miss you so much, promise me you'll return, and then they go off. Whereas this had a little more meat to it. It gave you a little something to chew on after.
Yeah. Like the first thing I think of all films is American Sniper. And there was scenes of arguments with him and his wife because his head was on this other thing over here, disconnected from the family life and the present, and he was in war still. And so it seemed like the same thing here where, and this is one of the things I really liked about the film, was that it appeared to me that Neil Armstrong had the weight of lives on his hand. Like he didn't want any more people to die. And so he became super narrowly focused on making sure this was right so that no one else perished in the effort to land on the moon. I appreciated that. And so, but all I'm trying to get at is like, that scene I feel like I've seen many times. I do agree with you though, it is neat to see the inside of this in ways that we normally don't get to.
Yeah.
Like it's all very just kind of textbook and clinical the way we hear about it. Like, oh yeah, Neil Armstrong went on the moon, he was the first one, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, next thing, and then you talk about the next chapter of humanity's effort to get to space, and you brush past all the emotional stuff. And I do appreciate that aspect of it.
Yeah, I've been reading a lot of criticism about Ryan Gosling's performance. So I'm curious to know what you think about it, but most people are saying, and you know, actually I think his performance was great, but I think his performance being great is what's going to keep him out of the awards race this year. It's the fact that Neil Armstrong is so stoic and almost emotionless throughout the entire movie, where he doesn't really have one of those big scenes that make you say, oh, he's going to go on to get an award. But I think it was vital in a movie like this because, I mean, when you think about it, why would NASA ever hire a highly volatile, emotional person to lead a mission like that?
I liked his performance quite a lot, actually. The only time I didn't appreciate it was when he was crying after the funeral. That's the only scene, and I know, like, because I went to see it with Achar Kirk. If you guys don't know who she is, she's on my channel, and she liked that scene, and she was invested in it too. But I felt the technical stuff going on, like, okay, I gotta cry now. He's crying. Okay, don't cover your face though, because you got to show the tears. So he puts his hands over here again. So
I find it so interesting that you're so hung up on all the technical stuff. Is that, I'm genuinely curious, is that something that you tend to notice quite a bit in any movie?
I try to notice everything.
Okay.
I try to take in everything. I go with the emotion first, and that informs like what I start to dissect later on. But like when I was watching that, I was literally becoming aware of the fact that I was watching a movie.
Okay.
I was not invested in what happened, and that's in great part due to how it was shot. Because like when he was spending time with his kid, I found that I just didn't care, and I wanted so badly to care about what he was doing, and then when he loses his daughter, and I could see what was going on there, I wanted to care. And then the funeral thing happens. I'm like, well, that was neatly edited. I don't care about what's happening, but like, I didn't care about anything happening with his family at all, and that's a big problem to me. Like, for some reason, I wasn't emotionally invested in that. Like, okay, a great example was when he's in the classroom for the first time, learning about all the physics stuff, right? And it cuts back to Claire Foy opening up the door to the neighbor who's greeting her with cookies.
Yep.
I'm like, I don't give a shit. Like, I don't want to know about the cookies and the neighbor stuff. I just want to get back to the classroom and what they're learning about. Like, that's way more interesting. And anytime we're not on that, I was like frustrated. I'm like, I want to get back to like the actual story here. I know that's the story, is also like what he went through emotionally, and these other people who are the collateral damage, so to speak, of like, if something happens to him, these people suffer. I get it.
I think maybe that does pertain to your heavy interest in astronomy and just wanting to learn about the science of it more.
I guess so. Like, one of my favorite scenes was when, it was a very simple scene, like nothing big, but he was like at home and kind of going, I don't know if he was going over the stuff, but Claire Foy came home and he goes, you know, this stuff is kind of neat. And she's like, what do you mean? And he's like, you know, the physics, and he's talking about it a little bit. He goes, it's just neat. And they kind of giggle. And I like that because I feel like I can identify with that because I'm super into tech stuff and whatever. And if I'm dating someone, I explain how cool this thing is. They have no clue what I'm talking about. But it's cool. It's like, it's neat how your phone recognizes your face or whatever it might be.
No, it's true though. I mean, that's kind of what movie making is about, and the idea of losing yourself in a movie too is, you know, and that's also why we have so many critics out there, and that's why something like, you know, a Rotten Tomatoes, you could go and look at that number and look at Rotten or Fresh and decide whether or not you want to spend your money on something. But what gets really interesting is when you start to get down to the individual reviews and you see different people's perspectives from, you know, different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different places in the world. That's what I think makes film criticism and film discussion so interesting to me, is just being able to track who someone is, what they're interested in, into why a movie affects them a certain way. So I'm genuinely fascinated by how your love of tech and astronomy is influencing what I think is your thoughts on the movie.
I wanted to be more emotionally invested, honestly.
Yeah.
I've been watching, but just so you know, like, you're at almost 30 minutes. I don't know. Does it stop recording?
That's all right. We're fine.
Okay.
I love that you're so concerned about it.
Because I think about those things when I'm shooting my videos. I'm like, okay, it's almost 30 minutes. But like, I watch, for anyone who already knows who I am, like, I watch a lot of Indian films, and those are super emotional. And so I'm actually interested in the emotional aspect of things. And like, I know that I'm comfortable with stuff that's emotional, and I just didn't feel it here. And that is a problem to me. For some reason, I felt it way more in Whiplash or something else. And this one just didn't strike me the way I wanted it to.
So curious, I responded very, very strongly to the last moment in the movie. Does that mean that had no effect on you? It
did and it didn't. Yeah, oh gosh. Yes, it did, but not as much as it did to you. So, so it was a technical thing that got me distracted, which is they used the actual voice recording of Neil Armstrong. And that was a part I was actually looking forward to, because I was like, I want to see if they show Ryan Gosling saying what he actually said. Because supposedly, him saying that's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind, there was a blip in the transmission where he actually said more than that, and it was taken out. But now that's what is ubiquitous, and everyone knows that version of it. But I'm like, no, like, show us the real thing, because this is all about what's really happened in this effort to get to space. Show us the real thing that he said in this moment. But it's like, I appreciated how he let it play out as long as it did. I don't know, when he dropped it, I felt something. I was happy that in the IMAX version, he didn't resize it like Christopher Nolan, or he just kept it in IMAX the whole time.
Yeah.
I know you haven't seen it yet, but when you do, it's like that scene is all just IMAX, even the old footage. And that's the only scene that's in IMAX, is that last scene on the moon, when he comes out into space. I liked the delineation, or the, what do you call it? How opposite it was from the rest of the film, where the film's all shaky, and then he comes out on the moon, it's just still. You know, and I kind of was just hoping for a little bit more from that scene. I don't know what I was hoping for, but one of the things that they talk about, oh, he's here.
He's here.
Yeah.
He's here. They all heard him.
I forget which astronaut it was. It may have been Buzz Aldrin, but I thought it was Neil Armstrong talking about how when you're able to see Earth from that vantage point, all those problems that you have suddenly look so stupid, and all the fights that we have suddenly look so wrong, like and futile, and it's just a waste. And I was kind of hoping for some aspect of that to be plugged in there, but it wasn't. It was just about him and his baby, which I appreciate.
Yeah. See, well, what you're explaining is why I think I responded so strongly to that, because it's this moment where you have the big difference between looking and seeing Earth so far away, and it's like the problems are so trivial, but the choice to stay in his shoes from his perspective that entire time and put the focus on him dropping the bracelet, it's all at the same time you're thinking about and kind of respecting this idea that, yeah, in the grand scheme of things, all these little problems that we have are so insignificant, but there's also the importance and respect that you need to pay to something that is important to you. And it's both of those things existing in the same moment.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is the perfect example of why something like this gets in my head. Because in that moment, even though I can never relate to going to the moon and doing this grand thing, or even going through certain family problems that he had, it's just about how you can apply the need to respect the little things that are important to you, but also the bigger things too.
Well, that scene perfectly exemplifies one of the things Damien Chazelle loves.
Is it freaking you out that he's like staring into your soul right now?
No, not at all. It perfectly kind of captures one of the things that Damien Chazelle loves to put forth to you, which is this sacrifice that someone has made for this much bigger thing.
Yeah.
To be immortalized, just like he said in Whiplash. It's like he sacrificed his ability to really focus in on his daughter and take care of her in the best way possible so that he could land on the moon, which we don't need to go into like how important that all was, but it is about sacrifice at the end of the day, and sacrifice is a big theme that resonates with me deeply. So I did appreciate it, but like I appreciated it intellectually, not emotionally.
Okay.
And that for me was the big problem. But one of the earliest questions you asked me was how I felt about his acting, and I know that there's a lot of people who did not like his acting. Ryan Gosling, but I actually really appreciated it. I thought that he did a pretty good job overall. I just, for some reason, it didn't help me connect with his love for his wife. I didn't feel hooked in there, even though that was supposed to happen.
Yeah.
So I don't know why. I don't know why.
I know.
It's
It's interesting to have a review where it seems like, so largely technical, so largely emotional, and that last frame of the movie. Talk about, like getting the claws in. That's what it was, and it just speaks to what we were just talking about that moment on the moon, where it's seeing the Earth out there, and the idea of like the trivial nature of your little problems, but the importance of them being there and them being part of who you are while still fighting for something big, and then taking him from that moment and then putting him back in this confined space with his wife, and especially with everything they had been through before, just that need that I had to examine their facial expressions. And he lets you sit on them just long enough that you formulate all these crazy ideas. The scene can go in any which way. And just that last moment of them putting their hands out, it doesn't necessarily give you an answer, but that moment chilled me to the bone.
Wow.
And then when the credits started to roll, I walked away and thinking of just like the complex nature of a relationship like that, and what the minutes, the hours, the days after that experience must have been like for the two of them.
I'm happy that you got so much satisfaction out of it that I didn't. I'm genuinely happy, because that's something that I wish I got, and I'm glad someone else got it. I just wish I got it too. I wish I got what you got from it.
Okay, wait. So we can kind of wind this down now, but I'm very curious. What did you get that satisfaction out of this year? Any particular movie or even a TV show if you've got one?
Oh gosh, in terms of emotional stuff.
Yeah.
I just watched a movie. I've been watching a lot of Indian films, as I said earlier, because the majority of my audience is Indian. But there's a film I saw called Secret Superstar, which wasn't even that big in India. But I mean, it had big stars, but it didn't do well at the box office. That movie had me crying almost start to finish. And then I saw a film recently called Suidaga, made in India. It didn't have me crying a lot, but it still moved me emotionally. Indian films are pretty good about moving you on the emotional side. But yeah, I think Secret Superstar was the film that messed me up.
Is it available? Can I, if I wanted to get it and see what, really gets at your heart,
yeah.
I want to watch it.
You have access to it, yeah.
Okay.
There's that, and there's one other film called, oh gosh, what's it called? Margarita with a Straw.
Okay.
But I think that was easier to get to me because it related to something parental, and I lost my dad. So that was an easy one, but like I literally had to stop the movie because I started sobbing.
Yeah.
And then I put the movie back on.
I'm not allowed to talk about it yet because I'm under embargo, but I was able to do a social media tweet, so I'll just tell you, Bohemian Rhapsody.
Okay.
I had a hard time. I walked out of that movie exhausted because I had a very hard time keeping myself from not just crying, but like weeping throughout the entire third act.
Wow.
Yeah, I was surprised.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, so check out Secret Superstar and Margarita with a Straw. Those are two films that moved me emotionally. And Margarita with a Straw in particular gives you stuff to think about because it's not your typical film where your character is like, not infallible, but like, how do I phrase this? The character is full of flaws. And I really liked that about her because you expect it, because she's like she's in a wheelchair, she's disabled. You expect her to just basically have this, this knack for something, and then she goes and gets it despite all odds, and it's like, that's not what the movie's about. The movie's about her just as a person. And I liked that aspect of it, which is the same thing that I liked about First Man, which is this is him as a person. Like he's a person, and we fail to remember that these are people, and it's not just items in an encyclopedia, you know. And so I do appreciate that aspect of it. I'm really happy that this story was told. I just would have executed it differently. But I mean, to each his own.
Yep,
you know?
exactly. That's what it's all about. Sharing opinions, having discussions, and respecting all those opinions. Yeah. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
It really is. I love having guests on the channel and being able to talk about what inspires and intrigues and interests them. So it's always wonderful to have this opportunity. So everybody can find your stuff all over the internet. Where can they find you?
Just look up Jaby on YouTube and you'll find me, because there's two channels. There's the one that's more focused on Indian content and the one that's focused more on American content. If you look up Jaby Koay, or you type in Jaby, you'll find both of them immediately. Like there's Jaby Koay and Get Jaby. Get Jaby is the one more focused on American stuff.
Okay. I'll put some a handy graphic or something so everybody knows the spelling and all that stuff. You guys know where to find me. You're pretty much here right now. But don't forget to like and share this video, and I'll see you real soon with more movie reviews.